Evening, ladies as well as gentlemen. I'm Papa Boris, and in this video, I'm going to teach you how to play Gwent, the Witcher card game. Now, I normally like to just dive right into the rules, but there are a couple of things I need to say here at the beginning of this one. I promise it'll be fast. Number one, this is a standalone collectible card game. It is not the mini game inside of The Witcher. I've never played any of the Witcher games, so I don't know what the mini game is all about. I don't know how it's similar or different to this. I'm just evaluating this game on its own merits. Number two, this is closed beta. I was lucky enough to get an invitation, and I'm recording this on, February 11th? So the farther in the future that you are from February 11th, the more likely it is that things have changed, because obviously this is closed beta and not the final form of the game. Now, the genre of this game is collectible card game, so it's in the same genre as Hearthstone, Magic, Chronicle RuneScape Legends, you got your Elder Scrolls Legends, you got your Duelist, probably some other collectible card games I've played and forgotten about. Basically, it's a pretty packed space, and one of the most impressive things about Gwent is that even though it is in a very famous genre with a lot of big hitters, it actually manages to be innovative. I find that a lot of the collectible games try to be innovative in a sort of token way, but this is like a really different from any of the other collectible card games that I've seen. So hats off to the designers. Let's go ahead and just very quickly discuss deck building, because of course the bulk of this video is going to be explaining how the gameplay works once you're in a game, but I do want to give you some context for how decks are built. So you do make a deck, you do fight one-on-one against another person, and you do try to win. So it has these very superficial facts in common with Magic and Hearthstone and other collectible games. When you create a deck, you choose a faction. There's 5 at the moment, and the faction determines a static ability that you have throughout the game. So for example, to use one that makes sense even if you don't know the rules yet, for the Northern Realms, if you play as the Northern Realms, whenever you play a gold unit, it gets 2 extra strength. So straightforward. Now, once you select your faction, you also select a leader. I'm not actually sure how to get more leaders, because when I tried to Google information about this game, all I found were wikis about the mini game in The Witcher. So I don't actually know. I have seen one other person in my playthroughs who used a different leader card. Maybe you find them in packs. Maybe you find them for leveling up. I'm not sure. I'm sure some smart person will laugh at my ignorance and point out the answer in the comments and feel really good about themselves. So please do that, because I just freaking want to know. But when you first install the game, you only have one leader to choose from. And this leader gives you a card that you can play once per game. So it's kind of like a hero power in Hearthstone, except you can only use it one time. So to recap, the faction that you pick determines your static ability, and this will always be the same regardless of which leader you choose. But assuming you have multiple leaders to choose from for a given faction, you can get a little bit of a different flavor within the same faction based on the leader card that you select. So anyway, I'm actually going to back out of here and open up a deck that I've already built using the Monsters faction. We'll explain some rules unique to the monsters later on. So you got your cards down here. You can click on them to add them to a deck. In this game, unlike in Hearthstone, you actually get to choose how many cards you want to have in your deck. You can choose between 25 and 40. Now, unless there's some advanced strategy that I don't know about, generally, good advice for newbies is use 25 cards. Your card draw in this game is exquisitely rare for reasons that you'll probably see in a moment. And so you're not going to see most of your, well, maybe you'll see most of your deck, but just barely. There's going to be a lot of cards that you do not see. So keeping it closest to the minimum as possible will make your deck more consistent all around. Right now you can see, for example, that I have only 24 cards in my deck as opposed to 25. So we'll go ahead and add in another one of these swallow potions, and then we're at 25 and we're ready to play. Now, one interesting thing in this game is that even though, of course, buying more cards will help you win, because there are definitely some cards that are just stronger than any of the basic cards that are out here. I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, it's not pay to win, it's pure skill. Like, I think that's a load of crap. But there is a little bit of a block on the pay to win-ness of the game. Gold cards tend to be the strongest, and you can only have 4 in a deck. Silver cards, you can only have 6 of in a deck total, and you can only have maximum 1 of each type of silver card. So for example, this prize-winning cow is a silver card. I can only have 1 of these in my deck, and I like that a lot. It does force you to be very selective about the gold and silver cards that you choose, and it makes overall gameplay more about the basic, bronze cards as opposed to these like fancy-ass legendaries. In Hearthstone, I mean, sure, you can only have 1 legendary in your deck, but that doesn't stop you from filling up your deck with tons of legendaries, and some of the highest pay-to-win decks are just loaded with them. So I like that about the game. One thing I will say, I will lightly review this game as we're going along here. I do wish that the basic card pool had more cards in it. No, I've already bought several packs, and as I scroll along, you're going to see that like almost all the cards I have, like that's it, we're at the end, like almost all the cards that I have are already in this deck. So the games are a little bit samey because the vast majority of players right now in the closed beta are mostly using basic cards, and there aren't that many. So one bit of credit I got to give to Hearthstone is Hearthstone really gives you a lot of free cards in the pool to start with, so you can actually make pretty different decks even without buying any packs. This game does not have that feature, and I hope that more cards are added to the basic starter pool so that the early games or your early matches against opponents have a bit more variety to them. Anyway, let's go ahead and save and exit this, and I'm gonna jump into a match against the computer. So we'll do a practice match. That way, of course, I can take as much as I want on my turns and not worry about time running out. Also, I'm more likely to win and not embarrass myself. Attack! Okay, so at the beginning of the game, you draw 10 cards, and you're allowed to redraw up to 3 of them. And this works a little bit differently than the mulligans in Hearthstone, because after you select a card to redraw it, you actually immediately see its replacement, and you can then redraw that one if you want. So for example, let's say I don't really want to play this impenetrable fog, so I get rid of it. Now I can decide do I want this ghoul or not. You know, and I'm like, actually, yeah, this ghoul sucks too, so I'm going to get rid of the ghoul as well. And I'm like, oh, I don't really want, 2 swallow potions, so I'm going to get rid of that one. So that's kind of an interesting feature of the game. Then a coin is flipped to determine who goes first. And the players take turns playing cards onto the board. Now, when you play a card onto the board, if it's got the sword symbol, like this cow does, it'll go into the sword row. If it's got the bow symbol, it'll go into the ranged row. And if it's got the catapult symbol, it'll go into the siege row. Now, mechanically, these rows are all equivalent. It's not like the cards do different things or anything like that when they're in the rows. It's just that there are lots of effects in this game that apply to an entire row. And so that's why you might want to have things in a certain row or lots of things in the same row or in different rows. For example, this is a special card called Commander's Horn. You pick a row, and all of the non-gold units in the row get 5 extra strength. So for the purposes of this card, it's better for me to have, 3 cards all in the same row than 1 card in each different row. If my opponent plays a card that fucks up all the cards in a row, then I'd rather have all the cards in different rows than in the same one. Now, another thing I should mention here is that there are some cards that create weather in a row. There's Frost, which affects the melee row, Fog, which affects the ranged row, and then I think Rain or something that affects the last row, the siege row. And what these weather effects do is they turn the strength of all the units in that row down to 1 for both sides. So I don't have one of these cards, so I can't show you, actually. I think I probably mulliganed the fog, didn't I? I guess I could have just kept it, for reference sake. But if you play a fog, it'll affect your ranged row and your opponent's ranged row, and then all units that are currently there, plus all units that get added to that row, will have a strength of 1, the minimum strength that a unit can have without being dead. So that's a quick look at card play. You can either play a unit into a row, and if the unit has an ability, then you have to target something with the ability. So for example, remove 1 strength from an opposing non-gold unit and gain 2 strength if the unit is destroyed. So if I were to play this, I would need to, target this unit to do it. Can I? Oh, no takebacks. All right, no takebacks in this game. I didn't realize that. All right, so anyway, we'll go ahead and target the only unit that I can currently target. And then that's my turn. So, if you're not playing what the frickin' Christ? Okay, so if you're not playing a creature card, then you can play a special card, like remove 7 strength from a non-gold unit. I can target this and kill it outright, for instance. I can take that one back, thanks game. Or you can use your leader card, which will do something, or you can pass. Now, the object of the game is to have more strength than your opponent on the board. So, in a way, it's mechanically extremely simple. You're just playing cards. Cards have strength. Special cards either, give you strength or take away your opponent's strength. I mean, there are some wacky cards in the game, of course, but mostly it's just adding strength, taking strength away, and Bob's your uncle. So you're just trying to have more strength than your opponent. But the key is that you have to win 2 rounds. And you get 2 cards at the beginning of the second round from your deck, and if you make it to the third round, if each player wins 1 round, then you only get 1 card at the beginning of the third deck. So what happens is that, maybe your opponent wins a round, but they have to spend a lot more cards than you to do it, so then in the subsequent rounds you have card advantage against your opponents, and you then win easily because your opponent blew everything on the first round. So one of the interesting things about this game is passing. You can pass whether you're behind or ahead, and once both players pass, the round is over, and whoever has the most strength wins. If both players have an equal amount of strength, then they each get a win for that round, and in this game you can have games end in a draw. So right now I could be thinking, okay, look, I've got 9 cards here, right? And my opponent has 8 cards. So I could just pass here, and sure, then my opponent wins the first round, but he'll have to play first in the next round, and he has 1 less card than me already, so I'll have some card advantage against him when that happens. He actually didn't use that many resources because this crazy thing brought out 2 other cards from his deck, so a little bit of pay to win going on here from the AI. And this thing also came out of his deck for free. It's a gold card because he played a gold card onto his side, and then this thing came out just totally for free from his deck. So he didn't actually play that many cards, he only played 2 cards, but he got a lot of strength out of it. And at this point I might be thinking, like, you know, for me to beat my opponent here would really take a lot of energy. I don't really feel like doing that. Now, the faction's ability for my opponent is that each of his gold units get an extra 2 strength when they appear on his side. My faction ability is that the last non-gold, non-fleeting, non-resilient neutral or monster card that I played sticks around. So between rounds, all the cards go away, unless you have some special ability that makes your card stick around. And so for me, the last card that I played will stick around. Unfortunately, I played this thing, so I'm only going to get a benefit of 5. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this Swallow Potion onto my guy to increase his strength by 8. Now what I'm doing is I'm hoping that my opponent will play out another card onto this round because, you know, I'm hoping to get him to go further down in cards against me. He's too smart for that, though, and he just goes ahead and passes. So now I either have to commit 22 strength to the board from my hand, which might make me the underdog in terms of card advantage in subsequent rounds and lose, or I can just pass and let him win, and then I start the next round with a 13 unit. So what I'm going to do here is, I think I'm just going to go ahead and play this prize-winning cow. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. Hang on. Yeah, I'm not going to do that, because if I play this cow, then I'm going to lose this guy, so that's not a good idea. So I'm just going to pass here and take the loss. You can see the game is extremely simple. All you're trying to do is get the most strength, but there do evolve some, like, complex strategies here based on the different faction abilities and card abilities and whatnot. Okay, so now I'm behind. I got to win both of my next 2 rounds, or I will lose the game.
Don't make me laugh.
Alright, return to your hand if you lose the round, and he has another roach. Oh, from your deck or graveyard. Okay, so even though this thing died, it actually came back from the graveyard because he played another gold card. Man, this AI deck is freaking ridiculous. Alright, I gotta mention, gold cards generally can't be fucked with. Pretty much all cards that affect anything, say, like, like, this is like remove 7 strength from a non-gold unit. Gold cards don't get affected by weather. They also don't get affected by buffs. So gold cards are just stay the way they are. Okay, so now he's got 9 cards. I've got 10. And it kind of sucks because I'm not really even that much ahead of him because of all these overpowered cards that he's playing. Now, if you download this game, you'll find that, like, most people don't have this crazy shit. Most people are playing with more or less basics, or at least for my, like, first 7 levels, I've encountered very few pay-to-win decks. But this game can get a little bit pay-to-win-ish, you know, at higher levels, I imagine, just because there is some pretty crazy shit that you can do that's not in the basic sets. Okay, anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and play this Ancient Foglet. So this is a 6 strength unit, which isn't super great, but he is immune to weather, and I do have a fog card. So the idea here is that I'm going to play fog to make his roach worse, and this thing also gains a strength at the start of my turn if fog is in the row. So we're going to play the fog, lower his strength, hopefully screw over any other ranged cards he might have wanted to play, and then grow this thing over time. Now he's playing these things. Every 3 turns, remove 2 strength from a random opposing non-gold unit. Yeah, I'm not a super big fan of that, to be totally honest with you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and, let's see, it's a random opposing non-gold unit. So it could be this. I could put out this cow here. When the cow is removed from the battlefield, I get a short. One problem with the game at the moment is that you can't see what the stuff is very easily. Like, you can't, like, go over there and see what a short is. In this case, I can right-click on it to zoom in, and then I see that a short is this thing. It's a 9 strength card. But the problem, of course, is that there are some situations where you can't zoom in, and then you can't see what the card is. So I'm going to put this out here so that when these things, you know, go off, there's a chance that they'll hit the cow, and I won't actually be affected negatively. Okay, so the guy just... And one other problem is that it's a little bit tough to see some of the effects of the cards your opponent just played. So he just played a special card, the Commander's Horn. And you can see that that's what it is, but you can't see what it did. So you have to actually go into the graveyard by right-clicking on it and hovering over it to see, like, oh, okay, so he added 5 strength to all non-gold units in a row. Now, had I chosen to kill this thing when I had the chance with Alzur's Thunder, I would have been in much better shape. As it is, I'll try to whittle it down and hope that maybe I can kill it later. Okay, this thing did 2 damage on my warrior, not my cow, unfortunately. Oh, God, he buffed it again with a Thunderbolt potion. So I'm trying to kill this thing, but I can't kill it, because I can remove 3 strength from it. But unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to remove all of the strength. That is really a damn shame. Alright, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go play this Wild Hunt Warrior and deal 1 damage to this roach, killing it, and giving me 2 strength. Still didn't hit my cow, unfortunately. And he's actually ahead of me. Oh, man, he's just buffing these guys to oblivion. God damn. Alright. We're going to go ahead and play a Fiend here.
Crush those vermin!
What? What is this thing? Every 3 turns remove 2 strength. Okay, I actually do not know what just happened. I don't know how it is that he played a new card onto the field and buffed all this stuff so much. So now, even though I lost the first round, this fucking AI is just crushing me into oblivion. Alright, well, we'll give it a best shot here. I'm gonna go ahead and use my leader card because I got nothing to lose. So the monster's leader card simply adds an 11 strength unit to the field that is immune to weather. And of course, these guys just do not hit my cows at all. Alright, he gave it a swallow potion. Man, I really should have killed that when I had the chance. Jeez. Alright, we're going to play a Commander's Horn here, giving +5 strength to every unit in the row. So, lucky 69 here. I mean, I have to go all out. Oh, my lord. Okay, so he played a card called Promote, which turned the units gold, and because his faction gives gold units an extra +2, they also got an extra +2 on top of it. That's just freaking delightful. Now I actually can't even target anything with my Wyvern, except for this. Actually, these are all gold units, so I cannot target anything with my Wyvern, because this only removes 3 strength from non-gold units. Spec-fucking-tacular. Alright, you know what? I'm just done here. So, yeah, the one weird thing that I do hope is changed is that the practice mode gives you AIs that have fair decks. I guess maybe they, like, looked at Hearthstone, which had, like, really ridiculously bad AI that you could just crush easily. So, like, oh, we don't want to do that, so we're just going to give them, like, overpowered shit. But it's also a little weird because the idea of practice should be that you play against a dumb AI, give your deck a chance to, you know, figure out how it works. And that game, I never had a chance. So, yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. You now see that it's a pretty straightforward game. You just play units onto the field. You're trying to have the highest strength, but of course there's lots of effects that change the strength on the board that can make certain plays better than others in certain situations, and you try to win. The idea is that if you do lose the first round, you should be able to win the second round because your opponent probably had to spend more resources to get that first win, but we just saw against the AI that that was not the case. So what I'm probably going to do here is make a second video in which I play against a human, so you can see what things are like when you play, you know, against more fair decks, again, you know, relative to the sort of basic crap that you start with. Alright guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.